Taxes, Tax Laws, and Tax Administration. Module 14. Business Law and Taxation. Edgardo Magalso, MPA. 1. Distinction among tax laws, revenue regulations, and rulings. Tax laws. These foundational legal enactments establish the tax, define what is taxable, and outline assessment and collection of taxes. They are primary sources, originating from the Constitution, statutes, like the NIRC, presidential decrees, executive orders, and judicial decisions, and can also include tax exemption laws. Revenue regulations. Issued by the Secretary of Finance upon the recommendation of the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, CIR. Revenue regulations are administrative issuances that specify, prescribe, or define rules and regulations for the effective enforcement of the provisions of the NIRC and related statutes. They serve to interpret and give directions on complying with the law. While they don't create new laws, they provide detailed guidance on how existing tax laws should be applied. Rulings, beer rulings, rulings, beer rulings are official interpretations of tax laws by the Bureau of Internal Revenue, issued in response to specific taxpayer queries. They are advisory, binding only on the requesting party for the facts presented, and do not set precedents. The BER can reverse them. Related issuances include Revenue Memorandum Orders, RMOs, for directives and Revenue Memorandum Circulars, RMCs, for publishing relevant laws and regulations. 2. Tax, its elements, and classification and the principles of a sound tax system. 1. Tax. A tax is an enforced contribution imposed by the government for public purposes. It is not a voluntary payment but a legal obligation required to support government functions and services. 2. Elements of a tax. Enforced contribution. Payment is mandatory and may be compelled by the government. Imposed by the state. Only the government, through its legislative body, may impose taxes. Levied by law. A valid law must authorize the tax. Proportionate in character, based on a reasonable standard such as income or property. Payable in money, generally paid in legal tender. For public purpose, used to fund public services and government operations. 3. Classification of taxes. As to subject matter, personal tax, property tax, and excise tax. As to incidence, direct tax cannot be shifted, and indirect tax can be shifted. As to rate, proportional, progressive, or regressive. As to purpose, general or special tax. As to authority, national or local tax. 4. Principles of a sound tax system. Fiscal adequacy. Revenue must be sufficient to meet government needs. Administrative feasibility. Taxes must be easy to administer and collect. Theoretical justice. Ability to pay principal. Tax burden should based on the taxpayer's ability to pay. 3. The power of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, BER, and the Commissioner. Internal Revenue CIR, and the non-delegated power of the CIR. Powers of the BER. The BER is responsible for assessing and collecting national internal revenue taxes. It can examine books of accounts, conduct audits and investigations, issue tax assessments, and impose penalties for violations. The BER also ensures that taxpayers comply with existing tax laws and regulations. Powers of the CIR. The CIR, as head of the BER, has the authority to interpret tax laws and issue revenue regulations, rulings, and circulars. The CIR can decide disputed tax assessments, approve compromise agreements, and oversee enforcement actions. The Commissioner has overall control and supervision of the entire agency. Non-delegable powers of the CIR. Although the CIR may delegate certain administrative functions, some powers cannot be delegated. These include the authority to issue specific rulings involving legal interpretation, approve compromises involving large amounts, and grant certain tax refunds. These powers require the Commissioner's personal discretion and judgment. Thank you.